Emily Leslie. You know, for so long, I thought that was just your first and middle name on social. And it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, no, that's her, like, husband's last name.
Yep.
And that's, because some people just do, like, oh, Mary Grace. Like, that's their Instagram handle. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, no. I mean, like, I knew you were married and had children, but I was like, oh, no, that actually is her last name. What's your maiden name?
Bayer.
That's what it is.
Yep.
Okay, so for those of you listening, all 7 of you, Emily and I went to middle and high school together. Mm-hmm. We were in a musical together.
Good times.
Good times. Forever ago, when I was in 7th grade. And so I remembered, that's how I remembered you when you came across my social media like 5 years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, why do I know this girl?
Yep.
But your last name was different. And I was like, I cannot figure it out. And then I watched a video of you, and then the way you talk is very like, you have a way of talking that I was like, I remember that girl. Oh. And I was like, that's Emily Bayer. That's right. So welcome. Thanks for being here. This is actually kind of like a season 2 for me. So I haven't done a podcast in 3 to 4 months.
Well, I'm honored.
And so to be fair, we were planning on doing this a long time ago. Yeah. But then I had some gum surgery, and that made me not be able to speak, for a little bit. And so we postponed, and now we're here. Tell me, I mean, I know why I invited you on. Tell me why you said yes to doing a podcast. Have you done podcasts before? Is this an interest of yours? Do you just like to talk? Why'd you say yes?
So I've never actually been on a podcast before. So this is my very first time doing anything like this.
Nice. Welcome.
I have been in like a speaking realm before. So I've had experience in that a little bit. Not that I've ever had like a calling to it or anything like that, but I don't know. I listen to podcasts all the time, and I was like, oh, how cool would it be to like actually be on one? So whenever you reached out, it was immediate yes. Just because it sounds like a cool experience, and I'm all about at least trying something once. And so I was like, if he finds me interesting enough to want to talk to for an hour, then I guess I'll do it. That's fine.
We could definitely talk for more than an hour. You have such an interesting, we'll see, I guess. But I think you are going to have such an interesting perspective on life because, and I'm going to speak for what I think is true about you, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But you kind of have done 2 paths in life, which is you started probably down what people would say is a very traditional role of getting married and having children very early in life, comparatively to what culture is doing now.
Yeah.
And you've also, up to now, had most of your career and professional success in the digital world, in the digital space, which is like very new age. And so you are a mother who's raising children at right out of college, I'm assuming, or being much younger than most of us when people start having kids. And then you're also like working in the like digital, very like current trends.
Yeah.
And so I imagine your experience has been quite unique in how to handle all that. And we'll get into all that into it in a little bit. But one of the other things that I thought was interesting is one of the reasons I asked to connect with you is because you do a really good job of balancing that, at least from what I see. I know that as someone who you require social media and you require the internet to have professional success, it can be really draining, just period.
Yeah.
Trying to do that with multiple children at home and maintaining a healthy marriage, that's its own job, if not multiple jobs. And you seemed to be doing a really great job at both. Now I know anything you see online, you take it with a grain of salt, is whether or not it's a reflection of real life. But that's one of the reasons why I reached out, because I was like, hey, you do so many things and you wear a lot of hats, obviously. And how do you do that? And what's your experience been? But then we hit pause because of my surgery. And when I followed back up, you were like, hey, I actually have potentially different thoughts. And the reason that's so interesting to me and why I'm super excited to also have this conversation is I too have come into, not come into, I probably started to develop and add to my perspective on the digital world in like the last couple months. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, but just for the sake of exposition and understanding, tell me a little bit about what your life has been story-wise post grad and or before then to now.
Yeah. You are absolutely correct when you say I've worn many hats. When we were talking before this, I even mentioned that I've been like 1,000 different people over the course of a decade. And I feel so bad for my poor husband because I'm just like a different person every 3 months. And he's like, I don't even know what you're going to do now, but it's fine. I'm just following along. And that's great to have him, willing to follow along with all of that and all of my craziness. So, yeah, I went to college, and halfway through that met my husband, and we got married 10 months to the day of meeting each other.
Wow.
So it was very, very quick. But I wouldn't have it any other way. And we're definitely not like the typical story you hear nowadays from millennials or Gen Zers or anything like that. And he was in the military, so we left, went to the military. Then when he got out, we went back to school. We both went together. And I was finishing out my senior year, and that was when I got pregnant with our twin girls. We had been married for 2 years at that point. So we had those 2 years together, which was great, just us two. And so we got to have we're still young and still fun, but now we're just like doing this together, and it was fun. And then we got pregnant and things got real. And I was needing to find a way to bring in some sort of an income, because at the time we were both working at it's like a t-shirt shop, basically. Like they did all the merch for the school. Oh, cool. And it's basically like a sweatshop is essentially what it is. And so we were both working there full time in between our classes, going to school full time. And obviously with me having twins, we found out it was twins, and that was nuts. But like, I obviously wasn't going to be able to work, and there was no way. I wasn't graduated yet, so I didn't have my degree. So I wasn't able to get a job that was going to pay enough to cover daycare or anything like that. So I started kind of looking into different avenues of making money, and the idea of network marketing came across my feed. And I feel like it's so funny saying it, because I feel like it's so typical of a new mom to be like, oh, network marketing. Yay, I can stay home with my babies and make money.
Right.
But when you're actually in that situation and like you're desperate to make money, you're willing to do anything. And so I kind of brushed aside all of my previous thoughts of direct sales or whatever you want to call it, and was like, you know what, I'm gonna just go all in on this. So I joined a company called Monate and stuck with that for, let's see, this year it's been 6 years. Wow. I'm still technically partnered with them. And so I went all in on that for right around 6 years, 5.5 years. And I made a lot of money doing it, which not a lot of people can say. But I'm also a very determined person who's going to make things work one way or another. So I went all in on that. I learned everything I could about how to market and marketing on social media. And that was pretty much it up until about half a year ago. And things have kind of changed.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I just think of the like memes where like it's like especially for us millennials, where we're like, the meme is, oh, when your friend from high school like calls you wanting them to join your wanting you to join their multi-level pyramid scheme.
Yep.
And knowing that like those are real, but you never feel like you're gonna get a straight answer, because everybody who knows what's really going on, those are the people that are telling you that there's nothing going on, right? It's like everyone who's in the room knows how it works, but they can't tell you, because the whole point is to convince other people that it works.
Right.
But it sounds like you legit had like a full-time career, like a full-time job from it. Yeah,
I was making a full-time income. We ended up moving after I had my girls and I graduated. We moved back to the Austin area and lived with my parents for a little bit. And I got a part-time job because it kind of doubled as an internship, which I needed to like officially graduate. And so I did that for a little bit. And then within a couple months of doing that and then finishing out my degree, I was able to quit that, whereas we thought I was going to have to stay with it.
Gotcha.
So that was really nice. So like the income I was bringing in from the network marketing company was able to surpass that, which was, you know, I knew I was going to make it happen for myself, but also in the back of my mind, I'm like, can I actually make this work? So it was really cool to see it actually come to fruition and happen.
Did you just have to like spend all your time convincing people that you're not scamming them?
That's yes and no. Because at the end of the day, like if somebody has it in their mind that you're scamming them, they're not going to buy from you.
Right.
And honestly, my approach was very different compared to the typical MLM thing that you see.
Yeah.
I never cold message people. Well, I take that back. In the beginning, you're willing to try anything and people are going to. Yeah, exactly. So like I tried it out. It didn't feel right. It felt icky. So I didn't do it anymore. So I don't do the cold messaging thing. I don't do the like, hey girl, it's been 3 years. How are you?
Right.
Like I didn't want to build something based off of that. I wanted to be real and honest. So that was where social media really came into play, was because, you know, the only way I can connect with people without seeming weird and like I'm trying to get you to buy from me is by just sharing what I'm learning and what I'm doing and how it's going on Instagram, social media, etc. And so that was how I built everything. And I think that built a lot of trust with people because I wasn't doing those reach outs to them to be like, hey, buy my stuff. They were seeing it in real time, being like, oh no, like she's actually legit.
Yeah.
I had so many people reach out to me and they were like, I've been really wanting to do this, but also like I've heard so many bad things. And they were like, but you do it so different. So that was kind of the key to my success there. That's
wild. Yeah. Well, so is it more about the products or more about signing up other people to like become? Because that's the thing that I was always curious is I've been approached by people from time to time who like have, you know, huge money making opportunities. And it's always like, oh, it's not really about the product. It's not about sales. It's about getting other people to like join your team because then you like exponentially make a piece of whatever they do. So like, was it about the products that you were selling or was it about like building a team? Like where was the like success for you?
Yeah. So I will say it differs with each different company because all compensation plans are different. So some of them are very team based. That's how you make your money. And then others are more product based. And so I felt like the company that I was with, they had a really good balance, which was nice. So if I ever wanted to take a break from feeling like I was just bringing people onto my team and focus on only building my income from selling products, then I could do that. And in fact, they encouraged that, which was really nice. I think my ratio of team members to customers was like 1 to 10. Wow. So I definitely had a larger customer base. And I liked it that way because first off, that was my recurring income, whereas you get like one big bonus every single month from the stuff that your team does. So that was like the money I could really count on. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're in it to make money and I needed to provide for my family. So like that was what I really focused on. Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't really believe in this product, but I need to make money? Or did you feel pretty aligned with like the quality of what you were selling and what you were like the results you were essentially promising to people?
There was a small season after having my third child where I was really skeptical, just because, and I had already been involved in the company for like 2 years at that point. So it had been a while and I was seeing great results up until then. And then for any moms here, like you go through a major hormonal shift whenever you have a baby and hormone shifts. I mean, I was selling hair products. So that hormone shift really affects your hair. And so I was having a lot of issues with that and couldn't figure it out. And then after a couple of months, I was able to figure it out. And then, I don't know, my hair just went back to how it was, which was great. And so then I was able to feel more confident again.
Like you were showing the real deal.
With like really promoting again, because it wasn't like I'm faking it to make it. I was actually like showing results, which was good. So, but that was the only time. And that was probably about a 6-month period. And I really got quiet during that time too. So people could see and I talked about it.
Yeah. That's tough. It's really hard. Like marketing itself is such a difficult place to navigate because, and I mean, it's also what I do full time. And so, your goal is to convince people to choose you. Like it's very self-promotional. I mean, it's the nature of it. And so your tendency is to talk about how good everything is. But like everyone knows that nothing's perfect. But like bad marketing is, acknowledging the flaws, right? Like you kind of sell an idea of things more than the thing itself.
Yeah.
And when you are no longer acting on behalf of somebody and you're like, this is what I'm saying, like the person is the one telling you this, the stakes feel higher. Where it's like when you recommend someone to a specific thing and that experience is no good, there's a level of like personal responsibility you feel.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who wants to navigate ethically in the world, that feels like a challenge for sure, I imagine. Well, that's crazy that you did that, but awesome that you had that success. I mean, I thought your content was awesome, and I never got gross vibes from you anytime that you post anything. So talk to me about where you've been the last 6 months.
So it's been a fun transition. I don't know. Probably even close to a year ago, I just started having this stirring in my heart that something didn't feel right, that this just wasn't my avenue anymore. I actually, probably about a year and a half ago, I went through like a really bad depressive episode, and that was my first time ever dealing with anything like that. I was the person before who was like, oh, depression is like, oh, you just snap out of it, Yeah. And now that I'm out of it and can look back, I'm like, oh, I was actually depressed during that time. And I realized a lot of it came from the fact that, you mentioned at the beginning of this that you thought I was really good at balancing my home life and being a mom and a wife with my business. And that is not at all what was actually happening. It was a lot of give and take. And so around that time, I tried to do a few things that would help to balance. And so I kind of offloaded a lot of my business tasks and tried to figure out how to be more efficient in business, which we didn't have a whole lot of tools at the time on like the team that I was on that teaches you how to do that stuff. So I had to go out and find a lot of that. And then once I was able to offload some of that work, that really helped a lot and it alleviated a lot. But there was still this feeling that something just wasn't right and it wasn't settling. And I was also starting to question, I had been doing this at that point for like 5 years. And I kind of got to a point where I was stuck and I wasn't continuing to move forward. And that was when the economy started taking a nosedive and, I had to bring in more money. That was really our only option. My husband was, he's capped out on a salary. So there's only so much we can do. So it was really up to me to try and figure out ways to make more money. So I started branching out into other options. I did a lot of social media trainings for other teams and stuff like that. And so I started looking into digital products and courses and stuff like that maybe I could sell and market. And got into that for a couple months and it was nice, but it still didn't feel right. And that was probably last September. And it was good for a time. And then it wasn't because I still wasn't feeling right. So I don't know what it was that came over me, but I just decided like, I need to be done. I had a really unhealthy relationship with my phone and social media in general. And as somebody who is a stay-at-home mom, I have access to my phone all the time. And I can just sit there and pick it up anytime my brain is bored. And I just started looking at my kids and hearing them all the time be like, hey, Mom, can you come look at this? And me saying, just a minute, honey. Or like I'm like scrolling on my Instagram while they're sitting there talking. And it's not even work-related stuff. It was just, scrolling just to scroll. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm working because I can interact with people and build connections. But in reality, I wasn't even liking photos, like I'm just scrolling just to fill my brain. And so that didn't feel right. So I decided to just be done. And the shift happened probably at the beginning of this year. I knew I wanted to be done and off of social media in general around Christmas time. And then I came across a reel of a woman who owned a sourdough micro bakery. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could do. And I was like, wait a minute. I like to make sourdough bread. I'd been making sourdough bread for like 2-3 years. And I was like, you know what? This would get me off my phone. She was talking about how her work week was like in a matter of 2 days, she worked 20 hours and she made $500. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal. And it's still bringing in some sort of income. Sure. Why not? And I'm like working with my hands and I'm not on my phone. Like, you have dough all over your hands. You physically can't be on your phone. So I was like, this sounds perfect. So I dove into that head first and now that's what I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It feels so, I feel like the most basic person saying it out loud, because first I'm like the new mom who's starting the network marketing business, and now like sourdough is super popular, and I'm the girl who bakes sourdough bread.
Sourdough is everywhere.
It
It's
really
like
is.
the like, oh, you get from the mother dough, and you like, people are just obsessed with it, and it's become like its own thing. I'm not really on TikTok. I've intentionally tried to stay away from adding another channel to my world. But I know that that's like all the rage. Like, sourdough stuff is everywhere, and people are making their own bread, and it's like a thing. So your full-time job now is baking sourdough related goodies.
Yep.
What does that all mean? Like, what does that even mean?
So I offer a porch pickup at my house once a week. I actually just expanded to 2 days a week now because there was a really high demand. And I like make bread one day and then I sell it the next day. And that's the extent of my work week.
That's it?
That's it.
You just make bread and put it on the porch, and then people drop off money and take the bread?
Well, I mean, I have better platforms to take payment stuff than that. But yes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. And like, my kids get to sit next to me the whole time and ask me questions and hang out and play. And it's the coolest thing ever. And I get to do work with my hands and not be on my phone.
Wow.
And I just get to live my little cottagecore life.
Yeah, but that's like the goal. That's the dream.
It really is. And we were just craving a slowdown as a family anyways. And I truly believe that the attitude of the mother really controls the home. What is that? There's a saying that goes along with that. I forget what it is, but like,
mom's not happy, nobody's happy.
I mean, yes, kind of along those lines. But like, there's some saying that's like the like basically like the vibe that the mom carries transfers onto the whole home. Yeah. And I realized that I was just very low vibe. And so this is something that, I don't know, it just brings me so much more peace. And there's actually a stat out there that says something along the lines of whenever you're doing something with your hands, it connects different things in your brain. And like it, I don't know all the science behind it, but I can physically feel it. Yeah. So I'll go with that any day.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, I think also just like there's something really profound about getting to see the fruit of your labor. Like, just in like, I think that's why people love plants. Like, I think that's a lot of people who like the plant, the idea of like, I get to nurture and water and feed, and then I get to see it grow. And there's something just like personally satisfying about that, and rewarding and meaningful. And so much work these days, like we just kind of submit, we like input, and then it just gets output somewhere, and we don't ever see the impact. And so to be able to do something that's like, you're making it, you're baking it, it's living, and then you give it to someone, you see them be excited about it and be thankful, like feeling someone communicating gratitude to you for the things that you have done. Like, that's what life is about. Like, feeling that gratitude is so much more rewarding than any paycheck. And anybody who doesn't agree with that, I think, is either lying or hasn't experienced true gratitude, because there is no amount of money that makes up for someone appreciating you and what you've done. So that's huge. But then also keeping you away from the internet and offline is so big. The data is in. on the impact of our phones on us, especially the impact of phones on children, and it's horrifying. Like it is so bad out there right now for us. And people don't really talk about it because phones are so necessary, quote unquote. And they're seemingly so important and needed for like functioning in life that we're not really talking about like how bad it is.
Yeah.
And you know, it's so interesting because like now we're even talking about that in church. Like there are sermons on a Sunday that's talking about like, put it away.
Yeah.
Like this is worship. Like we're literally worshiping this thing in front of us. And it's, you know, worship is anything you give your time, money, and resources to. Like anything you give those things to, it's an act of worship towards it. It's spiritualizing it and whatever, but like that's what worship is. And so access and freedom and attention and entertainment, like that's what we crave. That's what we strive for. And the phone is like the way to it. And so it's so bad for us. And yet we're also addicted, like actually, like, like
literally
literally, not just, oh, like I'm obsessed with that food or I love this thing. It's like, no, my brain is addicted to the chemicals that I experience when I check my phone.
Yeah. My brain is literally telling me if there's no thoughts in my mind, then my phone needs to be in my hand.
Right. And we have FOMO when our phone's been away for too long. Every time we check it, could be something new. It could be something exciting. And that's ruining us, I think, ultimately. And so I think, first of all, congrats. Like that's huge that you've been able to kind of step into that new phase. What's it like not having to like utilize the internet for your professional success?
Well, it's hard because also on one hand, I still do need to use the internet.
Oh, for just like letting people know about.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I do have a business account for my sourdough business. And that's just to be able to reach people. I mean, locally, if I can.
Yeah.
But also like if you want to expand how you're making money, you know, having an Amazon list that people can buy from, which means making content to sell those products and stuff like that. And, you know, brand partnerships and all those things like that's still on the table. And at the end of the day, like if it's a way for me to make money for my family, then I'm going to do what I can. But there's a lot more boundaries here that I'm able to put in place, which is nice. And it's not as necessary. Like I take weekends off of my phone now, which is fantastic. I don't feel obligated to post. Actually, I don't even think I posted on my business account for like a week, which on my old like personal account that I used before, that's just
not acceptable.
Exactly. That's unheard of. How am I going to reach people? And also it was harder being in a network marketing business where people are telling you 24/7 the only way to be successful is to show up every single day on your feed, on your reels, on your stories, all of it. Like you have to be there.
Right.
And so it's been tough to kind of make that mental shift. And I'm definitely not perfect by any means. I'm still reaching for my phone a lot. And so it's kind of an ongoing thing of learning how to put new boundaries in place that are going to serve me and my family well.
How has it affected your family?
I've been able to be so much more present with my kids. We actually, my twins, my girls, they're in kindergarten right now and they're in public school, but we had it on our hearts for a couple of years to homeschool. And we've kind of gone back and forth with that idea. But now that I'm kind of away from my phone and not feeling like, you know, so much of my time has to be devoted to that, I'm like, we're actually going to do it next year, which is really cool. And I feel like I can do that without feeling like I need to be checking my phone 24/7 or having to be on, you know, a phone call with so-and-so to sell products or recruit them to my team or do a team training or whatever, you know, whatever it may be. So that it's nice to kind of separate away from that. So that's been nice. And then time with my husband has been a lot more fruitful because, you know, like I said, the attitude of the mother affects the home. And so that also goes into like marriage relationships. And it was so easy to, whenever the kids go to bed, be like, oh, I have to do these last couple things on my phone. And then next thing I know, it's midnight and we have hardly said 2 words to each other all day long. And that wasn't good for our marriage. So it's been so nice to actually reconnect with my husband again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's literally just from the decision to say, hey, I'm not going to let my life center around this portal into the rest of the world of people who I don't even know. Like, that's the thing that's hard for me, is because I do believe the phone, like your phone can be extremely valuable in relationship building.
Yeah.
Like FaceTiming family members, like the fact that we can do that any time of the day is huge. Like I have family in Baltimore and in Dallas and in Arizona. Like I don't get to see them.
Yeah.
So like there's huge value in having these devices. And yet what takes 99% of our attention is other people who we'll never know. And we're so much more interested in their life.
Yeah.
Like we're so much more interested in having them make us laugh, us learning something interesting that we can say to other people in our real life to make us seem smart, or people who will say the thing that reinforces our personal opinion about what's happening in the world. And now we're like, hey, I have more evidence to use in arguments with other people online that I'm talking to. And we care so much about people we'll never meet and who will never know us and who will never care about us. And we give them our attention. And then there's people sitting next to us in real life who are like, where are you? Like, why won't you text me back? Like, and I have become in my life probably the biggest whiner about adult communication. Like
I'm horrible at it.
Regularly am in a self-dialogue complaining about how do these adults function in life if they don't know how to text back. And it's like not even 24 hours. It's like, it's been 7 days. And or this thing is pressing and I need an answer from you. And the problem is stepping into addressing that immediately becomes petty. Like, hey, I saw you were posting on social media, but you weren't texting me back. Like that's canceled. Like you can't, as soon as you do that, you no longer have ground to stand on because you're being petty, even though it's a totally rational and reasonable thing to feel, to say, hey, I'm seeing you engage with your audience or your followers, and I'm waiting on you for something that's either necessary, like actually like scheduling something, or just, hey, as someone who you've said is important to you, you're not prioritizing this relationship. But I just like, in the world of adult communication, I'm already generally frustrated. And part of that's my own expectations that I have to manage and know that I'm probably higher maintenance in that world, but then also not just like giving everyone a free pass to say like, oh yeah, just treat me however you want to treat me and I'll just take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, these like the phone thing is horrible. And I'm finding myself, the more I spend thinking about it, the more I catch myself auto just like picking up and looking.
Yeah. All the time.
And and even like when I'm watching things, being like, I shouldn't be watching this. Like I should set this down and go do things. And then we don't, and I don't. And then like an hour later, I'm like, what, why am I? And it's like, oh no, this is addiction. This is like, this is like being addicted to food and being addicted to any substance. It's like, even when I don't want to do it, I find myself doing it. Like, why do I do the things that I do not want to do? And it's like taking over, but it's really cool to see when you break that, or at least set boundaries, the like life that comes from it.
Yeah.
And what you've been able to give back to yourself and to your family, which is huge.
Yeah.
Are you having conversations about technology use with your kids?
So we've always tried to be a pretty low tech home in general. I'm very big on letting my kids independent play. and like actually be real kids. I just want my kids to have the same childhood that we had growing up, where like we would go out and go play in the street, and like the TV didn't matter.
Right.
I didn't start worrying about a phone or a computer until high school, really. And so all I did was ride bikes and play with my friends. And that's the childhood I want my kids to have. And so like we don't cut screen time completely by any means, but we definitely don't watch it all the time, and we spend a lot of time outside. So it's not even so much a conversation that's been happening yet, just because I don't think they're developmentally ready for that whole conversation,
Right.
Or like to understand the extent of it. But we do let them know, like, hey, watching TV all the time is not good for you. You know, if it's a rainy day or we're sick or something, then of course, like we're going to chill on the couch and watch some Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like that's just how it's going to go.
For sure.
But other than that, they haven't even really asked. They've made, like, my girls have made comments here and there about like, oh, I want a phone. And I'm like, that's cute. You're probably not going to get one until at least high school.
Right.
At the very least. But like, we don't do iPads or anything like that in our house. We just hand our kids some crayons and chalk and say, go figure it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's becoming less and less popular, because the temptation to just give them the iPad is overwhelming. And I've seen that firsthand, where I'm around children who are just creating stress. And then the parents are like, hey, you want to play video games? And you give it to them, and it's perfect silence. Their headphones are on, they're engaged, they're doing the game, and or watching the videos, and it's just like perfect. And
I have lots of thoughts.
Yeah, and it's like that. I understand, I empathize with the temptation to do that, because it's like, hey, I just need to get something done. Yeah. Like, here's this quick fix that's immediate, that will give them, it's that I need, as the parent, I need the instant gratification that comes with providing my kids the screen time.
Right.
And yet it seems like all the data suggests that more screen time is worse for the experience. And so, and obviously I'm like projecting, because I have no children. I have a dog. But
But you can see it.
I have siblings who, I have nieces and nephews, and I have siblings who have, I've experienced them parenting, and I have friends who have kids, and, I'm at the age where now many people my age are having children or already have children. And yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, I'm never going to let my kids do that. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to have the iPad ready, on deck for the moment where I need it. I do that with my dog. It's like, just here, eat this treat.
Yep.
So that you'll sit for 20 minutes.
Exactly.
So I can do something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I imagine, I think that's really great that you are intentional with the time outside, go play with your friends. Do they have like friends that they play with regularly?
Yeah. So we actually bought a house last summer, and the sales lady for the neighborhood, she was amazing, because she was like, I'm only choosing people to go on the street that have families, that have lots of kids. So there's like,
wow,
there's like,
sneaky.
Oh, no, it was awesome how she did it. And she was like, I'm not telling anybody this,
right.
But like our entire street is in the very back of a neighborhood. Nobody drives there, which is so nice, except for the construction guys.
Right.
Which they're almost done with, thank goodness. But it's just like, there's one family that has 4 kids. There's another family that has 3, another family that has 4. And then there's one little old man who's 86, and his name's Gary. And he is the sweetest U.S. vet you've ever met in your life. And he'll come out and say hi to the kids whenever I'm picking him up from the bus stop. So like, they have so many friends to play with. And it's so great, because we're all kind of on the same wavelength of, send the kids outside to go play, and don't hang out and watch TV. And not that I want to put this out there. I don't think that it's bad to hand your kid the iPad. I understand the temptation and like why you would do it, because so many times I've had to be in that same situation of mommy just needs to get this done really quick. And so like, here, entertain yourself for a second.
Quick fixes are a part of life. Like they are, there's places for them.
And you're never going to get away from that, but there's a give and take. And I have to think about what kind of a child I want my, what kind of an adult I want my child to turn into. And I don't want them to be dependent on phones all the time. Yeah. Or like, I don't want to outsource my parenthood.
Right.
You know, I want to be a present mom, or even just like somebody who facilitates a place for them to learn and grow and create.
Yeah.
That's not using something that's not already created for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's an impossible, and also like there's just like 100 million opinions about how to do it.
Yeah.
Which then it's like, am I even doing what I think is best, or what I'm doing? Am I doing what I think other people want me to do, so that I'm mitigating my embarrassment and shame as much as possible? And that's hard because, you know, I think there are some parenting techniques that, while not popular, are the most effective. Yeah. And I'm the most grateful for from my experience. Not like abuse, not like, you know, like not things that like, you know, like I don't think teachers should be like spanking kids in school.
Right.
But I do think, you know, not having your own room is actually probably better for you than getting your own room.
Yeah.
And we have taught parents that to love someone, give them what they want. I mean, we've taught the world that. Like, if you love someone, give them what they want.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, I'm pretty sure all the science says give kids what they want and they don't turn out to be great kids. Like,
pretty much. Discipline
and hardship and learning those life lessons are actually the most important things for any child to learn. Yeah. Once again, I'm not a parent, so I'm, you know, just saying what I have been taught from people who I trust. But like, I totally think that the reason I have the patience as little as I have, the self-control as little as I have, the willingness to obey as little as that is at times, like that all came from parenting, like the way I was raised. And a lot of what I experienced, parents would look at today and be like, that's terrible that you would treat your child like that. Like, and so it's like, you also have to navigate where you don't want to be just like outcast by all the other parents at school. Yeah. Because you're the parent that like hates their child.
But perks of homeschooling.
Right. And which is why so many people have branched off into other options, because it's like, are you even doing it because you believe it's what's best for your child, or is it because you want to avoid the shame from the smallest minority who speaks the loudest about their opinion about how you should live your life? Yeah. And like, that's really frustrating to me. Yeah. But I see myself doing it, where it's like, I'm making choices about how to live my own life based on what I think other people will think about me, who I'll never meet, and whose opinion I don't actually value, and who are people I would never ask for advice from. Yep. And yet I'm making choices about what I think they think about me, or what they would think about me.
And so we come full circle back to social media.
Right. Which is like, which is why social media is so,
even just Facebook,
the worst. All of it. Yeah. It's also, to me, it's also why, because we complain all the time about like, oh, social media is not the whole truth. Like, it's people's best versions of themselves. It's the highlights. And it's like, yeah, there's a reason. Yeah. Like, if I felt like I could be fully transparent, then I might. Yeah. But social media is not a safe space. Like, it's not a place where you can confess the issues that you're wrestling with and struggling with, where you're going to get unanimously overwhelming support. Right. And so that's the other thing that's hard. It's like, we complain about the inauthenticity of social media, and yet none of us really do a good job at building in like a space to do that. Yeah. And I get that there's, you know, like people are like, oh, I love when like I have my hype girls in my comments, like, you're doing so great. And like, I understand where it does bring a lot of support and joy, but for all the people who say good things, there's a lot of people who will say negative things. And so it's like, yeah, we're also training ourselves to keep the like grossness, keep the like struggles to ourselves, so much so that it's now become trendy to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of posting the video of you crying has become trendy.
Yeah.
Which is like so counterintuitive to everything that used to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like we've come full circle where it's like, oh, now actually to like talk about how bad you are, and not like how immoral you are, but like how unhappy you are.
Yeah.
Is
how depressed
trendy.
I am.
Right. And it's like, I don't ever want to like trivialize someone's pain.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to do that. And because I don't know people's stories, I don't have the right to step in and speak on whether or not the depths to which they are experiencing suffering is real or not.
Right.
You need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if they are saying that, then you should believe them until you have reason to otherwise.
Right.
But when you feel like suffering is becoming commoditized for attention, then it's really hard to take anything seriously when it comes across your feed.
Yeah.
And so as someone who wants to present authentically online, but also knows that there's wisdom in being selective about what you share, because some people will take information and use it for the bad. What's the right way to, like, what's the right thing to do? Because there are things about my work, about who I am, about me relationally that like I'm wrestling with. I'm processing through. But I know that not everybody should be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
And even with the podcast, even with this, it's like, hey, what level of transparency should I really engage in?
Yeah.
Because the whole nobody should know everything.
Right.
But
right.
everything should be known by someone.
Yeah.
Like my philosophy, and this comes back to like faith and community partners. I mean, like community groups and accountability partners, is like all of my stuff should be known by someone, but no one should know all of my stuff.
Right.
So like I shouldn't have parts of me that are hidden from everybody. And now that's a faith thing where I believe that like you should live in the light. So like there's no part of you that should be just yours.
Yeah.
Because you aren't yours. Like you don't belong to you. Therefore, there's nothing about you that should be totally private in the like, not that like you have to say everything you think all the time.
Right.
But like you shouldn't have this part of you that no one gets to see, because that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah.
Realistically. And now that's a personal life philosophy based on my faith and what I believe.
Yeah.
But like in general, social media is not for all of you. And so this is the question that I have for myself. Like, how do you interact with it authentically? Not don't present a lie, but you're not presenting everything. And I just don't know. Yeah. And so it has made me do this roller coaster of engagement. Where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to not be here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're like, social media is kind of like the toxic friend that needs support, but like you can't give everything to. Yep. Because ultimately they'll actually ruin you instead of you being able to help them. Yeah. Because social media and the internet's everyone else. Like it's this ethereal being that's everyone else besides you. You can't handle that. You certainly can't fix that. So how much of it do you give yourself? Like how much of yourself do you give to it to help others and to contribute? And then when do you step away and say boundaries? Like, no, you don't get this part of me. Yeah. And so that's like it sucks like to try to navigate that well. And yeah, so full circle back to what you were saying about like, hey, you've had this change. That's also where I've been. Yeah. I'm still processing like, how do I even talk about this? Because what do I really think? I just have learned that like, I care more than I should about what people think about me or what they might think about me. And more fundamentally, I think, hey, I have fallen to temptation in the past in different ways about what I said or how I treated someone or how I behaved. And so now if I say something about what I think and feel and believe now that is not congruent with how I've behaved, I will seem like a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. And therefore I shouldn't say or talk about my newfound perspectives and or philosophies or the new direction I'm going, because by saying, hey, I think that's not good, someone can say, hey, but remember when you did it?
Yeah.
Remember when you used to be like that? So you lied. It's like, actually, probably, yeah. Like, probably I was lying. Now, maybe I have learned and grown and been hurt and come to realize a truth that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
And, or maybe, yeah, I was being a coward in that I was not living out what I believed to be best.
Yeah.
And I convinced myself of it so that I could convince you of it. And I'm not even talking about like deep like deep morally wrong issues. Like I feel good about my behavior in general. I mean, as much as I can, being like a sinner and like a generally bad person. But like just with art, like how I treat art, how I approach art.
Yeah.
What are good boundaries for my interactions with people professionally? How much of my professional time should take away from my personal time? Yeah. Like, you know, things that I used to feel one way about, I'm developing and growing and having a change in feelings. And then it's like, okay, I don't want to come across as a hypocrite. And so as I grow, I don't say anything, which I think is not good either. So it's like, that's where I've been for 6 months probably, but like I haven't posted anything like on my photography page. Like the first thing I posted was like last week, because it's like, hey, I just need time to figure out how I want to go about this stuff. Yeah. And it's not best practice to not be engaged fully, as you well know. Yeah. And it's not a full-time job for me. It's not like money. It's not the leading reason why I do my craft and why I'm on social. So like, it's just all a lot. And I know I talked for like 20 minutes right there, but yeah, that's kind of like the overflow of my brain recently.
I think what you're dealing with, though, a lot of people are coming to deal with right now. Even from like leaving, not technically leaving my network marketing company, but like separating myself from that. A lot of even like the women that I was working with on a regular basis that I've worked with for the past 6 years, a lot of us are all coming to that same spot right now. And I've been having these conversations with so many other people across so many different industries, not even just network marketing, but like everything that's social media based. So many people are like, why am I doing this anymore? Do I even want to do this? Or am I just doing it because it's what everybody else is doing? Right. And I think we have all kind of decided that we're putting each other in a box and not allowing us to think outside of it. And we're doing this to ourselves. We're doing it to other people. And then we're like, oh, well, other people are doing it to me because I'm doing it to them. And so then it just gets us all in our head and we think that we can't free think anymore. And we're not allowed to change our path. And like, you taking that time off of social media, I think, is a great thing. For sure. Because like you need that space to be able to think through whatever your next steps are going to be and what's going to be like your life. But I know how scary that is, because you're like, well, first off, this is my livelihood and like this is what I love to do, or at least I told people I love to do it, but do I actually love to do it? And like, I know how that goes. And I think we're so worried about the backlash from other people about it that we forget like to sit in the quiet and to sit and with our own thoughts. Like we forget that we can think for ourselves too. And that was something that I've really had to come to terms with, is like, I have my own thoughts, and that kind of goes back to picking up my phone every 10 minutes. I never allowed myself to just sit in quiet and think. And that's, I mean, this is so silly, but like, that's part of why I like sourdough so much, is because I'm working with my hands and it's all silence. You know, I just get to sit there and think about, what do I want my future to look like? And I'm a very multi-passionate person. You can ask my husband. I'm doing all kinds of different things all the time. Like I was like crocheting one week and planting a garden the next. And now I'm baking sourdough and I'm creating a course and doing like, it's something new every single month, I swear. And I used to think that was a bad thing. I thought that like I need to pick one thing and I need to stick with it and I need to monetize it and I need to make it a business. And it needs to be my whole livelihood and it needs to be everything. And I've finally come to this conclusion that it's okay if it's not. And if I just do it for a season, whether I decide to monetize it or not. Cause I'm very much, like every woman strives to be that Proverbs 31 woman who like, she takes care of her home and gets all of her stuff done, but also like she's a bomb businesswoman who like gets stuff done. And that's awesome. I want to be that too. But also, I can evolve and I can grow and change. And I think that's the part that people are missing is they feel like if they change and they evolve and they grow, then they lose out on whatever success they might have had before. This is the best part of being a Christian, I think, is we know that if we are moving and evolving and changing and moving into whatever the Holy Spirit is having us move into, like we know God's got our back. Whether it succeeds or it fails, you know, God's got our back somehow. We've got something to land on. And so I don't want to make this a whole faith conversation because that's something I could get into for another hour or two. Yeah. But like that has been really grounding for me in this season. And so, yeah, I think like that would just be my suggestion to anybody running through it and dealing with that same kind of situation is what do you have to fall back on? And can you trust, you know, I don't know. Can you trust yourself? Can you trust whatever it is that you have to fall back on to know that like it's going to be okay?
I think no matter what you believe, you know, I think purpose and joy is found in knowing that there's more than just you.
Yeah.
And for those of us who believe in God, like we subscribe to that idea that like God's real, therefore he can be someone that we can know. And if he's real and we can know him, then that relationship can do something for us. And it also means that it's not about you.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things in life is the paradox of like, this is true and it's good and it's bad, but it's like, no one really cares about you. Like, no one really cares about you. And you can hear that and say, what do you mean? Like, no, my family cares about me. My friends care about me. Yeah. Like, but like nobody really cares about you.
Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of history, definitely no one cares about you, but like no one is thinking about you as much as you are thinking about them thinking about you.
Yep.
Like, and so there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
That's actually the most relieving thing is to remember like you're not that important.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you believe in God, you know that you are the most important because God's real and God loves you. But then also you're not important. Like that's the beauty of the Christian faith is like you both recognize how you are broken and so bad and not deserving of anything because of the behavior that you have lived out. And then at the same time, God loves you more than anything else in the world. And the things that he did for you is proof of that in a way that makes you the most important thing ever. Like that paradox only exists if God's real.
Yeah.
It doesn't if he's not. But no matter what you believe and no matter where you stand, like you're saying, having something to rely on that transcends your performance is critical to just like peace in general.
Yeah.
Because if it's up to you, if it's just up to you, well, that means you're going to fail. And when you fail, it's going to be sad and it's going to be hard and you're going to let yourself down.
Yeah.
So that's like what I see is really tough is like people in my life, especially people who are not spiritual or religious or who subscribe to kind of a transcendental belief structure. They don't like, they have to be God in their own life.
That's hard.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Like the burden of being God is why you're so sad. The expectation that you're going to figure it all out, that you're going to be able to push through what life will inevitably throw at you and make it, like you're not.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to do it. And so that's where I have definitely, like, I agree with you. Like, that's the beauty of our faith is like, we have something to remember that, like, hey, it's not about you. It's not about how much money you make. It's not about how much success you have. Like, that's not where joy's found. That's not where purpose is found.
Yeah.
But just in general, it's like the freedom to remember that, like, this isn't about you. This is not about how good you are or how good you can perform. Gives you a lot of freedom in the trenches.
Yeah.
And to me, like, and I will wrap up because I know it's been a while, but it's the culture of like you do you that has ruined everything.
Yeah.
Like
100%. If
you believe that your life is about you are going to be the least happy you could possibly be.
Yeah.
And that feels counterintuitive until you think about it for 2 seconds. Like, who's your least favorite person to be around? The person who only cares about themselves. Like, the least fun person to be around is the person who only makes decisions based on what's best for them.
Yep.
And yet our culture is, if they're holding you back, they're toxic.
Right.
If they're telling you that you don't need something that you want,
we do they're not telling you about that.
Yeah, they're not. They tell you not to pursue your dreams. Cut them loose. Like boundaries.
And that runs rampant in the network marketing world. That language. Right.
So it's like we are convinced that, like, you know what, just go for it. Like if you want it, you deserve it. Which is the greatest. I think it's probably one of the most, like, toxic belief structures you could subscribe to, which is the idea if you want something, you deserve it.
Yeah.
What? If you said that about, like, fitness and exercise,
that's hilarious.
They'd be like, what do you mean? You just want to be fit, so you deserve to be fit? Like,
it's not how that
you
works.
just want to lose weight, and so because you want to, like, it should just happen for you? Like, you know that's not how it works, right? We all know that's not how it works. And that's just a general example of, like, you have to sacrifice to achieve anything.
Yeah.
And sacrifice literally means letting go of what you want, giving up what you want instead of waiting for it to happen.
Yep.
And, like, that to me is like the foundation of all this, which is like, if life is about you, you are going to be so miserable because you're not in control, you don't have all the power, and things are not going to go your way.
Yeah.
Now, if your life is not about you, then what happens to you is not the central control of your emotions.
Yeah.
How your life plays out does not mean that you are miserable because you've not made it about you.
Yeah.
But to me, that's where social and, like, digital really has created this, like, weapon that's not being used for good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. It's nice because it changes your daily to-do list of, like, what can I get done today, to, okay, the only thing on my checkbox is how can I love other people today? And, like, does that look like teaching somebody? Does that look like sitting in the trenches with somebody? Does that look like mentoring somebody? You know, and that has been so nice for my mental capacity, because a lot of it was like, how can I get myself out there? How can I get myself out there? And that was not healthy. Not only did it give me an unhealthy relationship with social media, but it gave me an unhealthy relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Because all I was focused on was me. And so many people are caught up in that right now, and they don't even realize it, which is so sad. Even the people who aren't using social media for business, they're still in that same loop and they don't even know it.
Yeah. It's what's so fascinating is that it's also the best experience.
Mm-hmm.
Love on other people.
Yeah.
And tell me that that's worse than a big paycheck.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter what you think. The data is in. People who love others and put others first experience more joy and purpose in their life than people who put themselves first.
Yeah.
It's not even an argument anymore, but we all are convinced we're the exception.
Yep.
We're all convinced that we're going to be the one that's like, no, that success, that money, that status, that relationship, that marriage, that will bring me the contentment and the joy that I think that it will, instead of like actually like turn around and look at all the people who already love you, who are longing for you to be available to them. Mm-hmm. Would you just show up for them regularly? Mm. And then tell me how much happier you are. Not happy. Happiness is fleeting and not the goal. Tell me how much more joy that you feel and the purpose that you're given when you look to the people who are actually in your life and say, hey, how can I love you well? And for some people, it's a weekly phone call. For other people, it's a month grabbing dinner. Yeah. And for other people, it's like, hey, I'm mourning something that has happened to me. Can you just sit with me for a little bit? Yeah. And it's like, you won't know until you try it. People won't try it because they're too busy with their goals and dreams and all the things they want to do. But it's definitely what I've found to be true. It's like, love on other people and you'll be happier. And that's the message of this podcast.
Yep. Well, for me in this season, that's been learning how to love on my family. And I've learned that like motherhood is my greatest ministry. So I'm laying down, like, why would I try to disciple other people through, social media when I'm not even doing that in my own home with my own children? And so I'm realizing that like that's where my journey needs to start, is in my own home with my own children. And I need to let go of everything else right now until I know I can disciple them well and raise them to be good humans in a productive society. And then from there, then if I'm called to other things, then we'll branch out. And so like the sourdough thing, it gives me a chance to make connection and like have conversation with people and give people bread, you know, like, and that's the extent of it. But like really what it all came down to was, how can I serve my family and love on them the best that I possibly can? Because that gives me the most joy and fulfillment, while also like giving my kids the best opportunity, And
they will be people who go and do that for others.
Yeah, I hope so.
And that's the goal. I mean, what you model for them is what they'll see as the standard. And it's more important that they walk out of the house with that lesson than with memories of fun times doing fun things. Like,
that's my childhood.
Right. It's like, I didn't grow up with amazing vacations. Yeah. I grew up with parents who said, hey, this is where purpose and joy is found. Putting others first. Yeah. You want to find joy. You want to sit, not in these, terms, but like you want to sit in, the hospital someday thinking about how you've lived your life. You want to do it saying, I'm proud of how I lived because of who I loved. Yeah. And that's what I learned. Even though it was probably never said in those words. Like, it was probably never explicitly even said, like, treat others better than you treat yourself and you'll be happier. It's like, no, I just watched my parents do that. I watched my parents serve others instead of buying me what I wanted. Yeah. Giving money to do the things that others needed instead of buying me the presents that I wanted. Yeah. And I learned that and said, oh, what's that about? Like, why are we doing that? And that opens a conversation that is super helpful. And so, the fact that you're doing that means that your kids have a much better chance of becoming that themselves. And then, that's the goal, is we parent in a way that makes the world better by sending out little, versions of ourselves that take all the good, filter out most of the bad, hopefully get bad of their own in their own way. And, but the things that matter. And so, that's awesome. All right. Well, it's been an hour, so we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're the first person to bring me treats. So thanks for the sourdough cookies.
You're welcome.
And you're not the first parent I've had either. So you are stepping up. So thanks so much. Also, just like you have stepped into a really incredible space in life, I think, that moms and parents and adults probably take a really long time to find.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should be really proud of that, that you have been able to have the discernment to say, hey, even while my kids are so young, I want to be building skills and habits that will allow me to be ready for when they are 16 and ask the tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's a lot of proactive parenting happening these days.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to be so young and knee deep in a family with lots of children already.
Yeah.
To be someone who's fighting to make those changes now. Kids in 10 years probably will not be able to say that their parents did the same thing.
Yeah.
And so your children are very blessed. But you should also just like be reminded of that, because I'm sure that you compare yourself to other parents who are giving their kids things that you are tempted to give your kids,
mm-hmm.
because it's easy and quick. And I'm sure you will face a lot of conversations of like, Mom, why do they get those things that I don't have? And that's going to be hard, because someone who you love more than anything in the world is telling you that you're not doing a good job.
Yep.
And the courage to say, no, you know what? Actually, I'm Mom and I have wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that what you think you want now is not what's best for you.
Yeah.
And it takes a really loving parent, I think, to have the courage to say no to kids and
mm-hmm.
have those firm boundaries. And so the fact that you're doing it not reactively to poorly behaved children,
mm-hmm.
but proactively is really awesome. And you should be encouraged in that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's time to go. Thanks so much for being here. And yeah, see you next time.
Awesome. See you later.